What if I told you the habits keeping you from wealth look exactly like being responsible? That's not a trick question. The person who actually builds money, not the one posting receipts, but the one nobody notices, makes decisions that look boring, almost neglectful to everyone else. And those are precisely the ones that work. Here's what nobody tells you. Wealth is built in the dark. Nobody sees it happen because it doesn't happen in a moment. It happens in 100 small decisions, so ordinary they don't feel like decisions at all. Most people spend their whole lives waiting for the loud version, the big win, the lucky break, the sudden spike. That's not how it works. That's just how it's sold to you. So today, I'm going to show you the 10 quiet habits that do the heavy lifting, and stay until the end, because the last one is the most overlooked, and it's the one that changes everything. Before we start, answer one question honestly. If your income doubled tomorrow, how much of it would still be there in 5 years? Most people can't answer that. Not because they're bad with money, because nobody taught them the difference between earning and keeping. And that's the whole game. Here's the math nobody runs. Save $500 a month. Boring, right? At a 7% average return, that's roughly $600,000 over 30 years. Now make it $750. That's over $900,000. Same life, same rent, same coffee. The only difference is a quiet habit. So the question isn't what you make, it's what you keep. Keep that number in your head, because the very first habit on this list is the one that decides it, before you ever even see the money. Habit 1. Automate your savings so you never actually see the money. Most people get paid, and their money sits in checking, one tap from being spent. The quiet version flips the order. The moment the paycheck lands, a set amount moves somewhere you can't touch without effort. No decision, no willpower. Here's what nobody tells you. You don't save what's left. You spend what's left. Every single time. Automation isn't discipline. It's architecture. It turns saving from a daily battle into a once-a-year background task. The biggest risk here isn't the market. It's the gap between your paycheck and your willpower. Automation closes that gap. But here's the part that surprises most people. Even after the money is safely tucked away, most people still manage to lose it. Not in the market, in their own heads. Which brings us to the second habit, and it's the one nobody sees coming. Habit 2. Keep your financial reality to yourself. The quiet wealthy don't broadcast it, not because they're hiding something, because they've learned that the moment money becomes a conversation, it becomes a comparison. And comparison is where the quiet math dies. Here's the psychology nobody warns you about. Your brain is wired to anchor on what other people have. The moment you see a friend's new car, your enough quietly shifts upward. You don't even notice it happening. The biggest risk is envy. Not theirs, yours. The moment you compare your number to someone else's life, you start making decisions for a life that isn't yours. The only person who needs to know your number is you. And that leads to a strange contradiction. The quieter you are about your money, the more of it you keep. That same instinct, the one that protects the number, is exactly what saves you in habit number 3 at the exact moment you're about to spend. Habit 3. Wait 24 hours before every non-essential purchase. The quiet wealthy feel the same pull to buy. They just put one layer of time between the urge and the purchase. And that layer changes everything. Because the urge to buy isn't constant. It spikes. The dopamine, the excitement, the story you tell yourself, and then it fades. The 24-hour rule doesn't fight the urge, it just waits for it to deflate. The biggest risk is a purchase you can't remember in 6 months. The rule doesn't stop you from buying what you love. It stops you from buying what you only thought you loved for about 11 minutes. But here's what keeps me up about this one. All those small purchases you can't remember, they don't disappear, they collect. Somewhere quietly, they're forming a number you've never actually looked at. And the fourth habit is the uncomfortable moment you finally do. Habit 4, track your money. All of it. Boring, yes. Powerful, absolutely. You can't fix a leak you can't see. And high-interest debt isn't a bill. It's a leak. Minimum payments don't fix leaks. They just slow the water slightly while the floor stays wet. But it's not just debt. It's the subscriptions you forgot, the small purchases you rationalized, the money that quietly disappears into things you can't name a month later. The biggest risk is the money you're losing without noticing. Tracking turns the invisible into the visible, and the visible you can fix. Here's the shock of it. Most people, when they finally track a full month, find 5, 10, 15% of their income simply vanishing. And that's the exact percentage that, if invested, becomes the entire quiet fortune, which is why Habit 5 is about what you do with the money the moment you've rescued it. Habit 5. Own boring assets. The quiet wealthy don't chase the next big thing. They own index funds, diversified portfolios, assets about as exciting as watching paint dry. And that's exactly why they win. Here's the uncomfortable math. Over the long run, most actively traded funds underperform the simple, boring index. Not because the managers are dumb, because the fees and the guessing add up. The biggest risk is the urge to be clever, to feel smart, to beat the market, to buy what's going up. The quiet version accepts that you can't time it, can't predict it, and doesn't try. Wealth rarely looks impressive while it's being built. It looks like a laundromat in a strip mall. But hold that thought, because there's a quiet habit that quietly feeds that portfolio more than any investment choice. It has nothing to do with the market, and everything to do with a phone call most people never make. And it's worth more than you'd guess. Habit 6. Renegotiate your bills once a year. Phone, internet, insurance, subscriptions. The quiet wealthy treat these as negotiable, not fixed. Once a year, they make a call and ask for a better rate. Here's what nobody tells you. The companies are betting you won't ask. Most people never do. And every dollar you shave off a recurring bill is a raise you gave yourself every single month for life. Let's do the math. Shave $50 a month off your bills. That's $600 a year. Invested at 7% for 30 years, that's over $60,000 from 1 hour of phone calls once a year. The biggest risk isn't getting told no. It's never asking at all. And here's the part you'll feel in 30 years. Every dollar you never asked for is a dollar you'll look back on and quietly regret. But the habit that follows is the one that decides whether that regret ever happens, because it's the one that protects every raise you'll ever earn. Habit 7. When your income goes up, don't let your lifestyle go up with it. A raise feels like permission. Permission to finally get the nicer apartment, the newer car, the better everything. That's the trap. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it's the quiet tax that eats every raise before you ever see it. Here's the story that proves it. The man at the cookout, when his business finally sold, what do you think he did? He didn't buy the boat. He didn't trade the car. He banked the money, kept living like last year, and let the difference do the work. 2 years later, that's the house he owns outright. The biggest risk is that lifestyle inflation doesn't feel like spending. It feels like progress. And that's exactly why it's dangerous. Because it's invisible to the person doing it. I know how easy that is to hear and harder to feel. So before you dismiss it, ask yourself the question that made it click for me. If you never learned where your money actually went, if Habit 4 was the only one you'd ever done, would you even know which raise was the one that saved you? The next habit is the small thing that makes all of this possible. Habit 8. Spend 10 minutes a day on your money. Not an hour, not a weekend seminar. 10 minutes. Read a page. Review one number. Understand one thing about how money works. Here's what nobody tells you. Financial education creates the feeling of progress without requiring the discomfort of actual change. Watching videos about money feels productive, but it's not the same as acting on it. Knowledge and action are two completely different things. One builds wealth. The other just feels like it does. The biggest risk isn't ignorance. It's the comfortable kind of ignorance, the version that scrolls money content all day and never changes a single number. And that's the quiet test of everything we've talked about so far. Because here's the question you should be asking yourself right now. Are you here to feel like you're learning? Or are you here to actually change a number? The answer reveals whether the next two habits will ever matter. And the ninth one is where most people quietly fail. Habit 9. Learn to say no. To spending. To opportunities. To pressure. The quiet wealthy are fluent in no. No to the upgrade. No to the dinner you can't afford. No to the can't-miss investment that smells wrong. Every yes to someone else's expectations is a no to your own future. Every dollar spent on impressing people is a dollar that stopped compounding. The biggest risk is the cost of trying to please everyone. Saying no is the highest income skill most people never practice. Here's the uncomfortable truth behind it. Every time you say yes to something you can't afford, you're not just losing that $1. You're losing the entire future that dollar would have built. It's the quietest theft there is, and it's happening to people who would never dream of stealing. But even saying no perfectly, protecting everything you have, is only half the game. There's one more habit, and it's the one that dwarfs all 9 others combined. And now, the last one, the most overlooked, the one that makes everything else on this list finally make sense. Habit 10. Invest in the thing nobody can take from you. Your ability to earn. Here's why this one is different. Every habit so far protects and grows what you have, but there's a hard ceiling on how much you can save. There is no ceiling on how much you can earn. Think about the math of the whole list. Habits 1 through 9 at their absolute best can move your savings rate a few percent. But one new skill, one better position, one side income can move your income by 20, 30, 50%. Here's what nobody tells you. Saving makes you stable. Earning makes you wealthy. Most people spend their whole life perfecting habits 1 through 9 and never realize the 10th one is the engine. Everything else protects what you have. This one builds what you're worth. The biggest risk of all isn't a bad market. It's spending decades managing what you have while never once building what you could make. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Come on, Alex, this sounds nice, but I don't have $500 a month to automate. I'm barely making rent. You're right. You're completely right. And I don't want to lose that. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, habit number 10 isn't a luxury. It's the lifeline, because you can't save your way out of an income problem. So if you're starting at 0, start at 10. Build the income, then automate, then let the rest layer in. The order matters less than the compounding, as long as you start. Let's go back to that cookout, the man in the faded polo. He didn't build any of it in a year. He automated savings in his 20s when it was embarrassing how little it was. He drove the old car while his neighbors leased new ones. He made the calls, said the no's, protected the number. 10,000 small, boring, invisible yeses and no's spread across decades. And one day, quietly, without any single moment being impressive, he crossed the line. Nobody saw it happen, not even him. Because it never once looked like the commercial. It looked like nothing. And nothing, it turns out, is a lot more than most people ever get. If this made you think differently about what wealth actually looks like, drop a like and subscribe. We break down real personal finance concepts like this every week. And tell me in the comments, which of these 10 habits are you already doing? And which one do you need to start? The 10th one especially. I read every single one. One quick note, I'm not a financial advisor. This is educational only, and what you do with your money is on you. See you in the next one.